3's Armory videos are now done, letting us move on to one of the more standout Halo shooters, Halo 3 ODST. Built within a modified Halo 3 engine, ODST would largely use the existing sandbox to craft its gameplay experience. As such, a lot of the Armory for Halo 3 ODST is identical to Halo 3, though there are a few key differences. These are what we'll be looking at today. What returned from Halo 3, what was cut, and finally, we'll look at the additions to the sandbox and lore. This is the Halo 3 ODST Armory. We'll start off with the UNSC's Armory and what changed from Halo 3. Looking first at the weapons, Halo 3 gave us the MA5C Assault Rifle, BR-55 HB Battle Rifle, M6G Pistol, M7 SMG, M90A Shotgun, SRS-99D S2 AM Sniper Rifle, M41 Rocket Launcher, M6 Spartan Laser, AIE-486H Machine Gun, LAU-65D/SGM-151 Missile Pod, M7057 Flamethrower, and the M9 Grenade. Of these weapons, the Battle Rifle, the M6G Pistol, and the M7 SMG do not make a return, at least in the original Halo 3 ODST. With its update on MCC as part of the PC release, the Battle Rifle did make a return in Custom Firefight. Jumping over to vehicles for a moment, Halo 3 gave us the M274 Mongoose, M12 LRV, M864, M12G1 LAAV, and M831 Warthogs. That's the Chain Hog, Arctic Hog, Gauss Hog, and Transport Hog, respectively. The M808C Scorpion, the M313 Elephant, the AV-14 Hornet, and the D77H-TC/I Pelican. The majority of these vehicles return, though some with different civilian variants. The M84 Arctic Hog and AV-14 Hornet do not return in any capacity. We'll cover the additions to the sandbox at the very end of this. Shifting over to the Covenant Armory, let's again see what's returning and what was cut. Starting with weapons, Halo 3 gave us the Plasma Pistol, Plasma Rifle, Brute Spiker, Mauler, Needler, Covenant Carbine, Brute Shot, Particle Beam Rifle, Fuel Rod Gun, Energy Sword, Gravity Hammer, T-52 Plasma Cannon, T-26 Shade, and Plasma, Spike, and Firebomb Grenades. Now, pretty much all of these weapons return in some capacity, though the Energy Sword only appears as a brief Easter egg, otherwise unusable in the game. As a brief aside too, the Forerunner Sentinel Beam does not make an appearance at all. As for vehicles, Halo 3 gave us the Ghost, Chopper, Prowler, Wraith, Anti-Air Wraith, Scarab, T-26C Banshee, and the Phantom. Almost all of these return in ODST save for the Prowler. The Wraith is also added to the list of unusable vehicles in ODST. Finally, before we talk about the additions to the sandbox, let's briefly touch on equipment. Equipment returns in ODST, specifically the Bubble Shield, Deployable Cover, Flare, Invincibility, Power Drain, Radar Jammer, and Regenerator. Unlike in Halo 3, however, these are not usable for play, exclusively used by brutes. Finally, we come to the new additions to Halo 3 ODST Sandbox, and as usual, we'll start with the UNSC. Replacing the M6G pistol from Halo 3 is a modified Misria Armory M6C pistol from Halo 2. One of a few things Bungie did to the sandbox to firmly plant Halo 3 ODST within Halo 2's time frame. ODST features the M6C SOCOM, also known as the M6S or Automag, a weapon commonly used by ODST personnel. The M6S features an integrated sound suppressor and muzzle brake, along with a VN-SLS-V 6E 4x magnification scope, giving the Magnum a considerable range. Like the other M6 pistols, the M6S still uses M225 12.7x40mm semi-armor piercing high explosive ammunition and holds up to 12 rounds in its extended magazine. The M6C SOCOM entered service in 2415 and has proven to be an effective weapon for ODSTs. Its cutlass grip and barrel shape make it difficult to fit into standard holsters though, so personnel who deploy with it are forced to rely on the mag clem technology included with UNSC body armor. Given Halo 3 ODST's focus on dark, urban environments with low light, An era of stealth was inevitable, and a silenced weapon like the M6C SOCOM is an ideal default weapon for the player, at least in theory. While the gun is effective in its own right and has some really cool sound design, it does not function as a stealth weapon at all, which, at least for me, was somewhat disappointing. Halo 3 ODST introduces another variant on an existing weapon, once again meant for stealth. Introduced in 2431, the Visr Armory M7S is a silenced version of the M7 caseless SMG, featuring an SS/M 49 sound suppressor and an SLS/V 5B SmartLink scope for assistance with target acquisition. A laser sight and external flashlight are also optional additions. The M7S is typically given a 48-round magazine of 5x23mm M443 caseless full metal jacket ammunition, though it can also use the standard 60-round magazine of the standard M7. While usually issued to ODST operatives, the M7S can be issued to non-ODST personnel. Notably, it was used by then recently augmented Spartan IIs during their first mission, Operation Talon, during which they had been ordered to capture the United Rebel Front leader and UNSC defector, Colonel Robert Watts. Though most famously depicted in Halo 3 ODST, the M7S first appeared in Halo 2 Vista as a weapon that could be added to maps with the game's map editor, and later found its way into Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer. With the release of ODST on PC, the weapon was also added to Halo 3's sandbox alongside the Automag and Brute Plasma Rifle. Next, let's move on to some of the other technologies or technology variants introduced in Halo 3 ODST. First up we have the M168 Demolition Charge. There's not a whole lot to say about this piece of technology, though its use in the game is probably one of the most iconic moments of the game, blowing up the bridge from the New Mombasa mainland to Oni's Alpha site, and later the Oni building itself. The M168 can be attached to any surface using adhesive strips, and once armed, detonated to great effect. The Oliphant is a Jotun Heavy Industries produced civilian variant of the M313 Elephant. Operating in major cities, usually remote controlled by an urban infrastructure dumb AI like the Superintendent, the Oliphant is basically a heavily armored garbage truck. In one instance, its hull was strong enough to take on the full power of a Scarab's excavation beam, a weapon capable of destroying a Scorpion tank. It is important to note, though, that the Oliphant was heavily damaged by this attack and had a layer of additional shielding which almost certainly allowed it to survive. In another instance, an Oliphant was almost completely destroyed by a single Wraith mortar. Though it shares a similar profile with its military counterpart, the Oliphant is considerably smaller than the Elephant. The name Oliphant comes from the Dutch and Afrikaans word for elephant. Halo 3 introduced the more heavily armed D77H-TCI Pelican, and Halo 3 ODST gives us a non-military variant, the D77C, a dropship used by police departments for aerial support and crowd control. New Mombasa's D77C-NMPD is identical in size to its military counterpart, though features far fewer weapons given its role. In their place are numerous optical and sensory surveillance systems, useful for tracking and sieging fugitives or addressing large-scale emergencies, such as terrorist attacks, riots, and natural disasters, among other things. Though its primary role remains unit deployment, police in this case rather than troops, its utility is unrivaled. The D77C found great use during the initial Covenant invasion of Earth, first during evacuation efforts, and later when facilitating military operations within the city. Despite its non-military role, the D77C NMPD is still seen with an AIE-486H heavy machine gun in its troop bay, which may speak to the heavy police state the people of the UEG live under. It's also possible, too, that these were added specifically following the invasion of New Mombasa. The F-99 Wombat is an automated combat drone that was originally intended to appear in Halo 3. While it did make a minor appearance on the Halo 3 map Longshore, which released alongside Halo 3 ODST, it was ODST's campaign that gave the drone its first proper appearance. An unmanned combat aerial drone, the Wombat saw heavy use during the Battle of New Mombasa, their optical feeds connecting directly to the UNSC's battle network, allowing troops on the ground to access real-time combat data. The Mjolnir program would also design a helmet, the Akis helmet, with a wide range of targeting and surveillance features to maximize range-finding capabilities for both individual ground-side operatives as well as the F-99 Wombat drone and S-14 base large strike craft, among others. The Wombat is a notable deviation from standard UNSC aircraft naming conventions, named after an arboreal marsupial rather than a bird or other flying animal. Whether this has to do with the Wombat being a drone rather than a manned vehicle is unclear. Of course, one can't talk about ODST without bringing up the Ushuaia Armory single-occupant exo-atmospheric insertion vehicle. A class of human entry vehicle, or HEV, the drop pod is most commonly used by ODSTs to drop behind enemy lines or into an active battlefield, sometimes even directly onto enemy forces. The speed at which they drop and their relatively small size makes them difficult targets to hit, though riding one down can still be a major risk. The heat of re-entry, the possibility of hitting the ground too hard or at the wrong angle, among numerous other possibilities, makes riding a drop pod a roll of the dice each time. It's for these reasons that the ODSTs of the 105th Division are referred to as Helljumpers. The drop pod was first depicted in Halo 2 with a variation known as the M8823 SOEIV. The version in Halo 3 ODST is unnamed at this time, though it shares a number of similarities with the M8823 in terms of capacity and functionality. The main difference is the Halo 3 ODST's glass front, allowing the occupant to see what's going on outside the pod more easily. Once it hits the ground, the front of the pod is usually forcibly ejected by an explosive gas bolt system, though there are other options if needed. Along with the troop, the pod is also capable of holding a variety of weapons, equipment, rations, and more, and occasionally entire pods will be dedicated to equipment transport. These can even include small vehicles like a Mongoose or a Shiva-class nuclear warhead. Drop pods also include an extra fuel tank to move the pod after landing, though they must be in the proper upright position to be usable. The modern drop pod was introduced in 2461 and has seen a number of variations over the years. Lastly, let's talk about the Visual Intelligence System Reconnaissance, aka Visr. When designing Halo 3 ODST, the developers at Bungie wanted to set the ODSTs apart from Spartans in a number of ways, and one of those was with the Visr system. Though Visr technology is present throughout the franchise, ODST was where that technology was given a name and a purpose. Visr provides real-time tactical data capable of linking to local UEG, CAA, or UNSC infrastructure systems based on need or rating. Along with the standard HUD information, the Visr database holds relevant information for the user. Lacking a motion tracker, ODSTs can rely on the nav database for real-time enemy locations and the layout of the local area as that information is available. Users can identify mission-relevant targets, major landmarks, and set their own waypoints, with Visr then directing them to the target. Under the Intel parameter, users can find current mission objectives, and under COM is, of course, communications. Another feature unique to Visr is the addition of a low-light enhancement system. Along with functioning a lot like night vision, the Visr can highlight friends and foes in green and red respectively, allowing for easy identification of targets. When Project Mjolnir launched, ONI and the UNSC had to find a way to mitigate the substantial cost of the program, and one way of doing this was the widespread application of technologies derived from Mjolnir. Among many others would be the development of Visr. Lacking the required neural interface connection of the Spartan variant, by the end of the Human Covenant War, Visr would find use with several Special Operations personnel. And closing this video out, we'll look at the one piece of Covenant technology on our list, the Type 25 Brute Plasma Rifle. With Halo 3 ODST returning to the Halo 2 setting, it seemed the perfect opportunity to reintroduce the Brute Plasma Rifle. For its simple design and brief time with the franchise, this weapon left an impact, and there was nothing short of excitement at its return. There isn't much to discuss here that we didn't talk about back during Halo 2's Armory video, though the rise of Atriox Comics shows that the weapon saw use by Drelhani forces as early as 2548 during the invasion of Algolis, if not earlier. Like with the Automag and silenced SMG, this weapon was ported over to Halo 3 when ODST came to MCC on PC. Interestingly, 343 noted during that process that the Halo 3 ODST variant of the BPR was literally just a reskin of the Halo 3 plasma rifle. When bringing it into Halo 3, 343 brought it more in line with its Halo 2 counterpart to give it a more pronounced role within the sandbox. And that's it for this Armory video. I hope you all didn't mind the change in format given the uniqueness of Halo 3 ODST and enjoyed the information presented. Halo 3 ODST is a really unique game in the Halo franchise, a sort of experiment that I hope one day we can see more of again. But for now, what was your favorite change to Halo 3's sandbox for ODST? Let me know in the comments below. Look forward next time to the start of the Halo 4 Armory series, and after that, a little more variety with the content of this channel. Though I never got to make these primer videos in the time frame I originally wanted, there are a ton of topics I have lined up that are worth discussing regardless. Until then though, this has been Halo Canon. Happy New Year, y'all. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.